My name is Kate. I lost my mom from a deadly disease, kidney failure. Yes, I found comfort in my dad's strength, but it wasn't enough. That afternoon I saw everything that happened. I climbed the steps slowly, like my body already knew something my heart refused to admit. When I pushed open his bedroom door, my breath stopped. Clothes were scattered on the floor like fallen leaves. The bed was a mess. And in it, Dad and Jane. Together. Laughing. Until they saw me. The room turned to stone. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there, watching the two people I trusted most look at me with mouths wide open, searching for words that wouldn't come. I can explain, Dad started, but I didn't let him finish. I walked out. Just like that. Jane was supposed to be Mom's younger sister, yet she's in bed with my dad. This is the story of how I broke, and how I chose to live anyway. Hi everyone. Welcome back to Infidelity Tales. If you're new here, welcome. Subscribe and hit on notifications. For my returning subscribers, thanks for showing up. Let us begin now. Grief doesn't come in waves. It crashes like a storm, and then leaves everything soaked. That's what losing Mom felt like. 2 years ago, I held her hand as she slipped away. Kidney failure, the doctor had said, as if naming the storm could stop it. She was more than just my mother, she was my anchor, my safe place, my everything. When she died, it felt like the ground gave out beneath me. But Dad was still there. David. My father. The man who had loved my mom for over 25 years. He was her quiet strength and my loudest cheerleader. And in her absence, he became my rock. I moved back home a week after the funeral. What was supposed to be temporary turned into comfort. I couldn't leave. Not yet. We leaned on each other, two broken people trying to hold up the same collapsing house. Dad cooked breakfast. I made dinner. We went on long walks, talked about her, cried sometimes, laughed more often than you'd think. For a while, it almost felt like healing. We became best friends. It wasn't that he was refusing to move on. He just wasn't ready. Your mom was my soulmate, he'd say with a smile that tried too hard. That kind of love doesn't ask for a replacement. I respected that. I clung to it, honestly. Because I couldn't imagine anyone stepping into Mom's place either. Then Jane arrived. Cardi's younger sister. My aunt. Mom's opposite in every way, where Mom was soft and steady, Jane was wild and magnetic. She was the kind of woman who could walk into a quiet room and turn it into a theater. Growing up, I'd always seen her as the cool aunt, the glamorous one who traveled the world and wore high heels even to breakfast. She started visiting more. At first, I was grateful. She told old stories about Mom that made us laugh. She brought over dinners and wine. She had a way of distracting us from the heaviness that still hung in the air. Dad seemed lighter when she was around. So I didn't question it. But slowly, something started to shift. It began with glances. Then with how often Jane showed up when I wasn't around. I brushed it off. Dad was lonely. Jane was family. What could possibly be wrong with them spending time together? I didn't see it until it was too late. It was a Tuesday. I'd had a long day at work, meetings, deadlines, the usual chaos. I was looking forward to dinner with Dad. I walked into the house humming, hoping he'd made his famous chili. Instead, I found silence. And then I heard it. Laughter. Upstairs. Something in me froze. I climbed the steps slowly, like my body already knew something my heart refused to admit. When I pushed open his bedroom door, my breath stopped. Clothes were scattered on the floor like fallen leaves. The bed was a mess. And in it, Dad and Jane. Together. laughing. Until they saw me. The room turned to stone. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there, watching the two people I trusted most look at me with mouths wide open, searching for words that wouldn't come. "I can explain," Dad started, but I didn't let him finish. I walked out. Just like that. I didn't take my bag. I didn't grab a coat. I didn't even know where I was going. I just walked into the night, heart pounding, skin burning, soul cracking in half. The night I walked out, the world felt cold and unfamiliar, like even the stars didn't know how to look me in the eye. I didn't cry. Not that night. There was something too raw about the pain. Like it hadn't yet decided whether to become sadness or rage. I wandered for hours, ending up in a cheap motel on the other side of town. I barely remembered checking in. I just remember sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall, wondering if I had dreamt it all. But I hadn't. The images were burned into my memory, Jane's hand on his chest, the look on Dad's face when he saw me. Shock. Shame. Maybe even fear. But not regret. I stayed at that motel for 3 days. No calls. No texts. Just silence. And in that silence, I let myself break. I screamed into pillows. I punched the walls until my knuckles bruised. I cursed the universe. I cursed them. And then, I cried. I cried until the anger melted into something softer, grief. Not just for Mom. But for the version of my father I thought I knew. For the childhood that felt like a lie now. For every moment Jane smiled at me while stabbing me in the back. And yet, even in that anger, I missed them. I missed my dad's laugh, the way he'd always check to see if my car had enough gas. I missed how Jane used to braid my hair when I was little, telling stories about her wild days in college. It's confusing, the kind of betrayal that comes from people you love. Because no matter how much they hurt you, part of you still wants to run home to them. But I didn't. I went to stay with my best friend Monica instead. She didn't ask questions. She just opened the door, pulled me into a hug, and let me cry on her shoulder like a child. That night, she made tea, we watched reruns of a show we both hated, and for the first time in days, I felt a little less alone. The next morning, Dad texted. "Please come home. I made a terrible mistake. I sent Jane away. I just want to talk." I stared at the message for 10 minutes. Then I blocked his number. I wasn't ready. Healing doesn't come in a straight line. It zigs and zags. Some days, I woke up ready to face the world. Other days, I didn't even brush my teeth. Monica tried to help, inviting me on walks, signing me up for yoga classes, taking me out for tacos at midnight. Slowly, her world began to feel like a lifeline. But no matter where I went, I carried the silence of that moment with me. One Sunday afternoon, I visited Mom's grave. I hadn't been back since the funeral. I brought her sunflowers, her favorite. I sat on the grass and whispered every thought I hadn't had the courage to say aloud. "I don't know who he is anymore, Mom. I trusted her. I loved her. Why would she do that? How do I move on from this?" I didn't expect answers. But I needed to ask. And something about saying the words out loud felt like opening a window after a storm. When I got back to Monica's, there was a letter on the kitchen counter. No return address. Just my name in shaky handwriting I recognized instantly. Dad's. I almost threw it away. But something told me to read it. Inside, he wrote. "Kate. I have failed you. Not just as a father, but as the man who promised to protect your heart. There is no excuse for what I did. I let my loneliness drive me into a dark place. Your aunt was there, and I mistook comfort for connection. It wasn't love. It was weakness. I have sent her away, and I do not expect forgiveness. But please know this, losing your trust has been the greatest pain of my life. I love you more than I know how to say. If you ever want to talk, I will be here. Always. Dad. I read it twice. Then a third time. For the first time since everything fell apart, I didn't feel anger. I felt sad. Sad that he was human. Sad that we both were. That night, I took a deep breath, opened my journal, and wrote, I deserve peace. I deserve healing. I deserve to live a life not defined by what broke me. It wasn't a conclusion. It was a beginning. Healing isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering without letting it shatter you all over again. I kept Dad's letter in my journal, tucked between the pages like a scar that had finally stopped bleeding. I still hadn't gone back home. And I still hadn't replied. But something inside me was beginning to shift, slowly, quietly, like the sunrise after a long night. Monica noticed first. You're standing straighter, she said one morning while we were folding laundry. Your voice has some fire again. I smiled. I didn't feel strong yet. But I wasn't drowning anymore either. Instead of escaping the pain, I started writing through it. I journaled every morning, 3 pages, no filters. I poured out my heartbreak, my confusion, my longing for clarity. And little by little, the words started to build something, not walls, but bridges. Bridges back to myself. I also started seeing a therapist. Dr. Linda was warm and wise, with kind eyes that didn't flinch when I told her everything. She helped me understand something I hadn't considered before. Betrayal doesn't always mean the end. Sometimes it's a doorway. A painful, messy, necessary doorway to truth. Your dad hurt you, she said. But he also gave you something else, your independence. This pain woke up a fire in you. And now, you get to decide how you rise. And I did. I got promoted at work. Started running in the mornings. Signed up for a poetry workshop, of all things. I laughed more often. I made new friends. I visited Mom's grave every month. I kept growing. But one piece of the puzzle still sat, unfinished. Dad. I had forgiven him in silence, but I hadn't spoken to him since that day. And the longer I waited, the heavier the weight became. Not out of obligation, but out of love, the kind that doesn't vanish, even after heartbreak. So one Sunday, I walked back into the house I once called home. Dad answered the door looking older than I remembered. His beard was grayer. His eyes tired. But when he saw me, he smiled in a way that made my throat tighten. Hi, Kate. Hi, Dad. He stepped aside, and I walked in. The house looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. Maybe because I wasn't the same. We sat across from each other on the couch. No words at first. Just quiet. Then I spoke. I read your letter. He nodded. I meant every word. I know, I said. That's why I came. He took a deep breath. You didn't deserve what I did. Neither did your mom's memory. I failed both of you. I watched him for a long time. You were hurting, I said. But so was I. And what hurt the most wasn't what you did, it was that you let someone so close to her, to me, take advantage of your pain. He closed his eyes. I see that now. Silence again. But this time it wasn't heavy. It was honest. I'm not here to fix anything, I told him. I'm not even here to forget. I just needed to see you eye to eye. To say, I forgive you. Tears filled his eyes. Kate, he whispered, thank you. I nodded. I'm not moving back. But I want you in my life. On my terms. No more lies. No more pretending. You have my word, he said. We hugged, father and daughter, fractured but healing. And in that moment, I didn't feel like a broken girl anymore. I felt like a woman standing in her truth. That was 6 months ago. Since then, Dad and I have rebuilt a new kind of relationship. One that's rooted in honesty, not dependence. We don't try to recreate the past. We're building something different now. Something real. As for Jane? I haven't spoken to her. Maybe I never will. Some betrayals don't deserve second chances. And that's okay too. Closure doesn't always require a conversation. Sometimes, it's just choosing not to carry someone else's choices on your back anymore. To anyone listening to this, anyone who's ever felt shattered by the people you love, please hear this. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to demand better. You are allowed to heal without permission. Your heartbreak is not your identity. Your pain is not your destination. You can rise. And you will. Because the ones who rise after the fall, they don't just survive. They shine. Have you ever imagined yourself in this kind of situation? And I know so many things could be going on in your mind. What did you do about it? Subscribe to this channel, like, and hit on notifications for more interesting stories like this.